Public Unit, working with the Sex Crimes Division. The NYPD, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, and the FBI declined to comment. Joining us now, NBC News investigations reporter Tom Winter and former Assistant United States Attorney in the Southern District of New York, Mimi Rocah. She is a distinguished fellow in criminal justice at Pace School of Law and an MSNBC legal analyst. So, Tom, we'll start with you on the reporting on this. This has been a long, drawn-out case with Epstein, of course, with the first set of charges against him just completely contained by, I believe now, a cabinet official who was working in Florida. What are the possibilities right now for Epstein and for others to face charges, more charges linked to all of this?
Well, the possibilities are not good, Mika, and you're correct to point out others involved at the time. And last night I went through the entire the Palm Beach Police Department's case file, and they were prepared to move against two of Epstein's then assistants and to charge them as well with recruiting girls and knowing that they were underage and knowing what these girls were being recruited for, which is to perform quote-unquote massages which turned out to be anything but and were sexual encounters. So I think, Mika, when you look at what was brought here and when you look at the state case file, the evidence that they uncovered, 5 victims, 17 people that they talked to one of his former house workers who said that Epstein ordered him to send a dozen roses to a local high school for one of these girls. When you look at that type of information and what they were able to develop about some of the people that work for him, I think the idea of possible further prosecutions is certainly possible, although I don't think we'll hear about that today.
So, Tom, earlier we had you from Miami Herald in here.
Terrific reporting.
Yeah. Actually, it started this whole thing, I think, in terms of the public prints. But she was reporting and talking about she had over 80 young girls, not women, young girls, who were subjected to this depravity by this guy. You have seen the tape from the warrant,
from the search warrant, correct?
So the search warrant in Jeffrey Epstein's home on the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
In Palm Beach, actually, but yes.
Okay, so what was on the tape?
Well, it was interesting to me. So the tape was taken when they entered the home. They had been conducting searches on Jeffrey Epstein's trash, so they were able to get up some of his appointment books. They were able to get wire money transfer, Western Union documents that they were able to get as part of those searches, and then they went into his house. And when they went into his house, it was very interesting for me to see the things that were redacted. So lawfully, they can't show me video or images depicting an underage girl naked. And there were several redactions on that tape indicating to me that there were several pictures that showed an underage girl naked that were leading into Jeffrey Epstein's bedroom. In addition to that, when we look at that tape, there's a before and an after. There's what they found when they first entered the house, and then there was what they took. And so when you see the second part of that tape, you see that they took numerous pictures of young girls, pictures that we would not show on the air because it is believed that they are victims of a crime, and that he had all sorts of picture collages, kind of the small little pictures that were just set up of all sorts of pictures he had with different girls. All those were taken, and that was from his private bedroom and bathroom area where a lot of these crimes and some that he pleaded guilty to took place. So it was a pretty stark tape for us to see when we were able to get it as part of a lawful public records request.
So, Mimi, in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to state charges, and as part of and Secretary also was involved with that prosecution. But as part of that, he signed a non-prosecution agreement with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So why now? Why is he potentially could be facing more charges? How does that work? Walk us through that.
So the non-prosecution agreement that he signed with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Florida, as Tom actually highlighted for me last night, is specifically limited in its language to the office in Florida. It's like a contract. If you enter into a contract with someone, what does the language of the contract say? Well, in that contract, it says this office, meaning the United States Attorney's Office in Florida, will not further prosecute you for, these crimes. So it doesn't bind the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. That's point one. Point two is that This, I think, I mean, we will know much more later today when we see the charges, but this conduct is going to probably overlap to some degree with Florida because it really was sort of one big sex trafficking conspiracy where he had girls going back and forth. But it's also going to involve new conduct that I think was not previously known or charged in Florida. So they're going to have sort of different arguments about why this prosecution should go forward. And putting aside the law for a second, this is the case where I think the Southern District of New York is doing absolutely the right thing. Justice was not served in that first case. I mean, it is a travesty what Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to get away with, that he sexually abused and raped himself and allowed others so many young girls. That is one of the most serious federal crimes I was ever involved in prosecuting. I mean, we're talking 10, 15, 20, 25 years in prison.
Yeah.
This guy got a slap on the wrist, and we don't know why exactly, but now it's time for him to face serious federal felony charges.
Yeah, Mimi and Tom, I want you both to address this, but just yes first. So you talk about what he was allowed to get away with. Is it clear that prosecutors, Alex Acosta specifically, allowed him to get away with these crimes?
Yes.
Or at least, okay.
I would,
so
and here's why I would say so, maybe just briefly. In the non-prosecution agreement that has his name on it, there's 8 specific prosecutorial areas from 2001 through 2007 that the FBI in his office, his own prosecutors found at the time that he was engaged in. And there were very serious crimes, to Mimi's point, I'm looking at the NPA right now, involving minors and trafficking them that they were aware of. So, yeah, it's concerning.
So here's my question. What is Alex Acosta's intention to do this? What would he gain out of letting this guy basically run scot-free after abusing dozens of young girls and also inviting his friends to and letting others, like, what does Alex Acosta have to gain? I mean, he's made a fool of himself in the law community, but even more, he's let a predator go scot-free. Why? What is behind that?
Well, and look,
is he involved? I've got to ask. Is he protecting himself?
I don't know the answer. There are not indications that he himself, that I know of, that he himself, Acosta, was involved. But what there are indications, I mean, if you look at the judge's opinion in Florida who found that the prosecutors in Florida violated the law by not informing, in fact, deliberately concealing from the victims the state plea, what you see when you read that opinion, when you hear the details of how the plea negotiations happened, is that Alex Acosta was very close with attorneys who were representing Epstein. They knew each other from their law firm days. I think at best this was a case of sort of an old boys network. We know each other. Alex Acosta had a meeting with one of the defense attorneys privately, away from the U.S. Attorney's Office at a restaurant. Right. That is highly unusual and improper in an ongoing case.
But aren't there ramifications for this behavior? Should he face charges?
Well, is it criminal? I don't know. We need more details. I mean, could it be that he took some kind of a bribe? It could be. That would be criminal. We don't know that yet. There is an investigation going on in the Office of Professional Responsibility in the Department of Justice. I hope that uncovers some facts. I hope that the Southern District of New York, if there are facts that indicate criminal activity, will take up that mantle. But we need more facts, more information. It is just shouting with red flags about the conduct, but we need to know more.
Mika, if I could just add just very briefly, there's something here in our reporting that strikes me, which is that this investigation is being led by the Public Corruption Unit of the U.S. Attorney's Office here in New York. It's not being just something that's being run by the Sex Crime Division, and that's not to minimize that, but it says to me that they're going to look at this in a broader sense. When you look at Barry Krishner, who was the state attorney, the local prosecutor at the time, who who actually was the person who put together the plea deal. You look at some of the communications from the police chief asking him, why are you treating this case so unusually? We have those letters, we have those documents. And then when you look at this non-prosecution agreement, I think a lot of questions come up for an awful lot of people that touch this case at the higher levels, not the people that did the actual investigating, but the people that touch this case from the higher levels. And I think, Mika, looking at who's looking at this case, I think that we're going to hopefully get some more answers to some of those questions that you asked.